particular chapter is forest resources. So in this chapter we will be learning about these 5 things that I've written down here, which is the meaning and importance of forests. Forests andre enu adu enak important anta kaliತೀವಿ. So the types of forests. So ಯಾವ ತರ forest ಇದೆ India nalli, and the distribution of forests. So where and all they are distributed and spread across India, and the conservation of forests. What are the steps we are taking to preserve our forests? And then the differences and the meaning of wildlife sanctuaries, national parks, and biosphere reserves. Now, the first subtopic, which is meaning and importance of forests. Now, what is a forest? A large area of land covered with trees and undergrowth. Okay? Now, trees we know. What is undergrowth? Undergrowth is all sorts of shrubs, bushes, okay, roots, all of those small plants. Now, all of them. So, when these two cover a large area of land, they form forests. Okay? Now, what is the importance? Now, it is one of the natural resources of India, correct? It's of great commercial value to all of us and ecological value to all of us. Now, what is the importance? What and all do we derive from forests? We get wood, right? Fuel, timber, raw materials for industries like dairies and a lot of medicinal plants as well. And these in fact are raw materials. Timber we use for construction of houses, and wood we use for all sorts of furniture, and fuel when we burn firewood, right? That is a fuel. Now it checks soil erosion. Remember we studied in the soil chapter, since the forests and the roots hold on to the soil erosion is prevented, and it controls floods, and it regulates the flow of rivers, okay, and it prevents desertification. Now see, since it prevents soil erosion, it also prevents desertification. The land won't become desert soon, okay. If there are no forests, then the soil will get eroded, and finally you'll be left with a lot of sand, which is deserts. So that doesn't happen because of our forests, and it improves the soil fertility, correct? Due to forests there is humus, organic matter, which goes into the soil and improves the soil fertility, and it influences our climate, right? When there's a lot of forests, now there is a lot of transpiration. The leaves leave out water, correct? Now this water, it goes up, right? And it forms it adds up into the water cycle, and it gives us rain. So a lot of forests influence climate. It makes the climate equable. It makes it easier for us to survive. And the main thing, it provides shelter to wildlife. Lots of wild animals, their home is the forest. Now, let's talk about the first type of forest, which is the tropical evergreen forests. Okay? Now, as you can see, the name has tropical and evergreen. So, tropical means India has 2 parts, correct? The Tropic of Cancer passes through India, alva. So, the bottom, the south, is the tropical region, and the top is the subtropical region. Okay? So, since India lies in the tropical zone, that's why we have this particular name specifying that it is a tropical type of forest. And then we have evergreen. What does this mean? This means that the forest appears to look green throughout the year. So evergreen. So let's learn about the features of this type of forest. 1. There is no definite time for the trees to shed their leaves. Okay? ಸೊ ಇವಾಗ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಲೀವ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಬಿದ್ದೋಗಕ್ಕೆ. ಎಲ್ಲ ಲೀವ್ಸ್ ಒಂದೇ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಬಿದ್ದೋಗಲ್ಲ. ಓಕೆ, ಇಟ್ ಕೀಪ್ಸ್ ಇವಾಗ ಬೀಳುತ್ತೆ ಒಂದೊಂದು ಟ್ರೀಸ್, ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮಂತ್ಸ್ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದಷ್ಟು ಟ್ರೀಸ್. ಸೊ ರ್ಯಾಂಡಮ್ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಬೀಳ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ಆಲ್ವೇಸ್ ಲುಕ್ಸ್ ಗ್ರೀನ್. ಓಕೆ, ನಾಟ್ ಆಲ್ ದ ಲೀವ್ಸ್ ಶೆಡ್ ಅಟ್ ಒನ್ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಟೈಮ್. That's why it looks green throughout the year, and hence we call it evergreen. Then the forests are dense. Dense andre closely packed. They there is no lot of gaps. Okay, it's a dense forest, and the trees grow to a height of up to 60 meters or even taller. So really tall trees are present in these forests. And then the region is warm and wet throughout the year. Now we know that in the tropical zone, the sun's rays are almost parallel. Okay, so there's a lot of heat. Okay, and this tropical zone is warmer than rest of the earth. So hence the region is warm and wet because these regions receive a lot of rainfall. Okay, now these forests are present in regions that receive up to greater than 250 centimeters of rainfall. So it's usually wet throughout the year. It's warm and wet. Now these forests also have a wide variety of vegetation, not just one type of tree. Okay, lots of different types of trees, shrubs and creepers, giving it a multi-layered structure. So the leaves in these forests, right, now they have developed to withstand continuous rainfall. Okay, so the leaves will be broader, and all of these trees, shrubs and creepers, they compete for sunlight. So there's all these different types of trees, correct? There's like a canopy and then all these trees, they form this sort of covering, so the sunlight won't get penetrated easily to the lower level plants which are shorter. So they all compete, they grow in such a way that they can receive some amount of sunlight. So there's all these trees and the shrubs and everything here, and then there'll be all these trees which form the canopy, and some of the trees even peek out of the canopy which grow taller than that. Okay, so it's a multi-layered structure, it's very dense. Okay, and the leaves are big. Now let's learn where the tropical evergreen forests are present in India. Okay, so it is present in those regions which receive greater than 250 centimeters of annual rainfall. Okay, so naturally it is present on the western side of the Western Ghats, because that is where a lot of rainfall is received due to the incoming southwest monsoon. Correct? So that is one place. And then the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, because it is in the equatorial region, right? And they have tropical evergreen forests. And also in the northeastern states of Assam, Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram and Tripura, because they also receive a lot of rainfall due to the incoming southwest monsoons. Now let's learn about where the tropical deciduous forests are present in India. Now they are present in those regions which receive 100 to 200 centimeters of annual rainfall. Okay, and as we learned, the tropical deciduous forests are of two types, moist and dry deciduous forests. The moist deciduous forests are present in parts of Odisha, West Bengal, and the foothills of the Himalayas, and also the eastern side of the Western Ghats, the eastern slopes of the Western Ghats. And the dry deciduous forests are found in parts of the Chota Nagpur Plateau, Karnataka, parts of Kerala and Tamil Nadu. Now let's talk about your third type of forests, which is scrub forests and grasslands. Okay, now they appear in those regions which receive 60 to 100 centimeters of annual rainfall, which is lesser, much lesser than what is needed for the tropical evergreen and deciduous forests, right? And they have two important features. One is that the vegetation includes short, coarse grass, thorny trees and bushes. Okay, so really short sort of grass just growing here and there, and thorny trees, the mulu, thorns on the trees, and lots of bushes. And the trees, all right, they are scattered. So scattered here and there. They're not dense, okay? They're scattered, so there's a lot of gaps in between these trees, and they have long roots. Why do they have such long roots? And they penetrate andre growing deeper into the soil in search of moisture, to get moisture. So these trees have really long roots. Now let's talk about where the scrub forests and grasslands are present in India. They are present in areas having 60 to 100 centimeters of annual rainfall. And those regions are Kutch, fringes of the Thar Desert, eastern part of Rajasthan, and Punjab, okay, and parts of the Cardamom Hills. Now let's learn about desert vegetation. Okay, now the features are very easy to remember. One is that the leaves are mostly thick and small to minimize evaporation. Okay, so desert vegetation is obviously found in regions which is arid and very dry. Okay, the region might receive rainfall from 10 to 50 centimeters, that's it, annually, and hence there's not a lot of water, correct? So the plants have to evolve in such a way that they store whatever water, groundwater is available. So how have they evolved? These leaves, they've become thick, okay? So the water is retained, not a lot of transpiration happens. And also the stems are succulent to preserve water. What is succulent? It means thick and fleshy, okay? Even the stems are thick and fleshy in order to preserve water. Now let's learn about where the desert vegetation is found in India. It is found in those regions which receive scanty rainfall, so 10 to 50 centimeters of annual rainfall. Alright, so now we know that the northwest part of India receives almost no rainfall due to the southwest monsoons. And that's because they lie in the rain shadow region of the Aravalli mountains mostly. Okay, so that's why these regions have desert type of vegetation. So they are Rajasthan, Punjab and Haryana. And also parts of Deccan Plateau, which is like North Karnataka, they also receive very less rainfall and hence have desert type of vegetation. Now let's learn about mountain forests. Okay, now as the name suggests, these forests are found on the slopes of mountains, right? Now what are the special features of this forest? Now there is a gradient of vegetation with change in altitude. What does that mean? Altitude, we know, is the height of any particular place from sea level, correct? So as there is a change in altitude, okay, like from 1000 meters above sea level to let's say 4000, 5000 meters above sea level, okay? So what exactly happens here? When there is a change in altitude, there is a change in the vegetation, the types of trees that are present, right? Now they vary. So that is why we call it a gradient, okay? So whenever something varies over a particular field, right? So we call it a gradient. Now what is this? There is a gradient of vegetation. So let's see what is this gradient. Now these are like rough numbers, okay? So, but this is how it varies. This is what you need to know. So the first type is the tropics. So the tropical forests are present. And then you see the temperate forests, then the alpine forests, then the tundra vegetation. Okay, that's how it varies. So what is tropics? You know that they are like broad leaves. So the tropical deciduous forest, the tropical evergreen forest, those sorts. And then there are temperate forests, which are coniferous trees, right? Trees which look like cones. And then you have the alpine vegetation, okay? That is a slightly different sort of vegetation. And then you have the snow line, okay? On top of the snow line, there is also some alpine grasslands. So on top of that, there are just rocks, correct? So there's not a lot of trees and stuff that can grow. There is no soil, this is just a rock, boulders. So over there you can find mosses and lichens. Okay, mosses and lichens are a sort of just a layer of green. Okay, it's not a plant as such, it is just a layer of green. It's microorganisms. Okay, micro plants in fact. Now let's learn about where we can find mountain forests in India. So as the name suggests, we find it on the slopes of mountains. Okay, so mainly on the slopes of the Himalayas. So that is one very important place where we find the mountain forests, and the Nilgiri hills. Now they have mountain forests. Now let's learn about your last type of forests, which is mangrove forests. Now these are very special and very different than the others that we've learned. Alright, let's look at the features. Now the tree trunks, right, in these forests are supported by a number of stilt-like roots which are submerged underwater. So these roots are submerged underwater instead of being in soil, okay, like the other roots. And they are stilt-like, okay. So there's a lot of supporting stilt-like roots which support the tree trunk to stand upright. Alright, and they are found in wet, marshy areas where there's a lot of water, okay, and marshes, and in river deltas. So remember I told you river deltas are where river joins the sea. So over there, because there's a lot of alluvium and silt deposition, correct? So where mud and silt has been accumulated, this soil is needed for these trees as well. And along the sea coasts influenced by tides. So between the low and the high tide. Now what are these tides? What is the tidal effect? So you know that the moon's gravitational force causes the waves in the sea, the tidal effect. So it has exerts tidal force on the oceans of the earth. So whichever side the moon is closer to the earth, right? So over there is high tide. So the water, so if this is the coast, then the water fills up and reaches a higher level, the highest level possible. And then when there is low tide, okay, that is when the moon moves over to the other side, then the water recedes. It reduces and it goes back to whatever level it was. So this high tide and low tide occurs in the span of one day because the moon rotates along with the earth, correct? The moon also revolves the earth. So because of that, so wherever there is this tidal effect between the high and the low tides along the sea coasts, these mangrove forests are present. Now let's learn where we can find mangrove forests in India. Now they are generally present in wet, marshy areas, in river deltas, and along the sea coasts which are influenced by tides. Alright, so in India it's mostly found, so they're found in the deltas of river Ganges and Brahmaputra. Over there they're called the Sundarbans, and the deltas of Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna and Kaveri. Now let's learn about conservation of forests. Okay, the prevention of destruction, over exploitation of forests and its management is called conservation of forests. So basically we are preserving, we are protecting our forests. So how do we do that? We prevent the destruction. Destroy madak bidala. We prevent the over exploitation. Exploitation andre to use what the forests give us, right? So exploitation is to use it, and over exploitation is overuse it, which we shouldn't do. Nature has its own time to heal, right? We need to give it some time when we take out some things for our usage. Okay. Okay, so forests in India specifically, they are very important for our national economy, correct? But nowadays we are doing so much to destroy it. Since our population has become more, we are cutting down so many trees, right? For the purposes of furniture, for the purposes of building, for the purposes of making way for constructing apartments, for constructing industries, for doing irrigation, for planting crops. So the natural vegetation, the natural forests of a particular land is getting decimated, destroyed. So what are the measures that we can take in order to conserve our forests? So there are plenty of steps, okay? So one is obviously to control the deforestation. Now deforestation is cutting down trees, so we need to control it how much ever we can, correct? And we should absolutely control the illegal cutting of trees. Now people need to take permission from the government to cut down trees, okay, and state the purpose. But illegally some people cut down trees, especially the sandalwood. It is very pricey and it's very useful, so they illegally fell it. They fell the trees, right? So we need to control that. And controlling the forest fires, which is a natural disaster which can, burn hectares of land, correct? So we need to control it. And this is very, very important, okay? Because powerful people can do so much to help our forests. So we need to pass legislation, we need to pass laws. The state government and the central government needs to put specific, very firm and very good laws in place which prevent people from cutting down trees, okay? And we need to encourage afforestation. We need to encourage people of all different backgrounds to grow as many trees as they can. And we need to control the forest insects and the diseases which, let's say 1 or 2 trees are affected, then those diseases can spread to other trees, and some of the forest insects which try to harm the trees. And then we can creating awareness among people about the importance of forests. So we need to teach people, okay, how important forests are for the ecological balance, right, of the nature. So we need to teach as many people about it so that they get interested and they get encouraged to protect and preserve our forests. Okay, so your next topic is wildlife sanctuaries. Okay, what is this? Wildlife meaning wild animals, right? Which is not domestic, which you can't keep in your house and raise, correct? Now these animals are present in the wild, in the jungles. Now what is sanctuaries? Sanctuaries andre safe place, aita? So a safe place where they are protected from any sort of danger. So a wildlife sanctuary, this WLS, refers to a place meant for providing protection to wildlife. Okay, so in such places in India, killing and capturing of any sort of wild animal is prohibited. It is not allowed, okay, as per law. As per laws given by competent authority, you are not allowed to kill or capture any wild animal, okay. So how many such wildlife sanctuaries are there in India? There is 523, quite a good number of wildlife sanctuaries, correct? Now let's look at some important wildlife sanctuaries. So over here you can see Annamalai, Mudumalai, Bhadra, and in Karnataka some of the others are Dandeli, Talakaveri, BR Hills, okay, and the Periyar in Kerala, Nagarjuna Sagar in Andhra Pradesh, Ranthambore in Rajasthan. So these are some of the wildlife sanctuaries. There are many, as you can see here. There are a total of 523 wildlife sanctuaries in India. 523. Now here you can see national parks. Now what are they? An extensive area which is specially protected to preserve its natural beauty, wildlife and forests for public recreation and scientific interests. Okay, so extensive area, a large area which is specially protected for three things. Okay, one, to preserve the natural beauty of the place, the wildlife, all the wild animals, and the forests as well. Okay, now for public recreation, so people can go there, they can visit and they can look at the natural beauty, they can look at the animals. Okay, and they can also conduct any scientists with permission, they can also conduct a sort of experiments or observations in such areas. Okay, there are 99 such national parks in India, and the first ever national park in India was the Jim Corbett National Park in Uttarakhand. Okay, and any sort of agricultural activities or grazing or forestry, any sort of growing, cutting down, nothing is allowed in such places.
Now let's check out the national parks in India. As we know, there are 99 national parks, and let's look at some of the important ones. So the Kaziranga in Assam, Corbett in Uttarakhand, Dudhwa in UP, and Sariska in Rajasthan, the Gir National Park in Gujarat, and then we have the Kanha in Madhya Pradesh, and the Bandipur, Nagarhole and Bannerghatta in Karnataka.
Now let's talk about your last topic, which is the Biosphere Reserves. Okay, now these are special sort of lands across the globe. They are present. They were initially started in 1971 by UNESCO. UNESCO is a part of United Nations. Okay, they started picking out certain places across the globe and naming them as Biosphere Reserves. Okay, so they gave this status. So what is a biosphere? Now we know geosphere, hydrosphere and atmosphere, correct? So for the land, the water and the air. So in between here where all of those places coincide, right? So this forms the biosphere, correct? Where there is all these three elements and life. So there is people, there is animals, everything. So a biosphere reserve is a special category of protected area of land or coastal environments. Okay, it's a special category of protected area of either land or coastal environments. Now people become a major focus in this biosphere reserves. People are given importance because in the other two, right, the wildlife sanctuary and the national parks, people were not allowed to do anything. No cutting down trees, no agriculture, no grazing, no shooting animals, no killing animals, no capturing animals. But here, there's a certain level of involvement from the people in the biosphere reserves. So what sort of involvement? So there's local involvement by the people around in that particular area. There is conservation efforts, there is research that happens over there, and there is education about these particular lands. So these are special lands. Okay, there are 18 biosphere reserves in India, and you will learn about them.
Now, as you can see, let's list out the biosphere reserves in India. There are 18 biosphere reserves. So the cold desert here in Himachal, Nanda Devi, Kanchenjunga, Manas, Dihang Dibang, Dibru Saikhowa, Nokrek, Sundarbans, Simlipal, Panna, Achanakmar Amarkantak, Pachmarhi, Run of Kutch, Seshachalam, Nilgiri, Agastya Malai, Gulf of Mannar and the Great Nicobar.